Hi y'all. Thank you for joining me for another video. Sorry I've been inconsistent over the past couple of months. This is a season of being busy for me and now getting into the holidays. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent, but no promises. I'm doing my best. So thank y'all for being patient, for always being patient. So this week I was trying to decide on what to talk about. Then I was talking to a coworker about an experience I had on Instagram, and she gave me the idea to talk about that as wrapped around the domestic um, abuse world and just women in general. And I thought it was a great idea. And so I'm doing that idea. Um, First of all, let me tell you about what happened to me on Instagram. As you know, I'm on Instagram. If you want to follow me there, Penny Z, Z-E-E, that's my site there. I follow things dealing with foster care, trauma, former foster youth, all within um, that world, because mainly so I can learn more because of my nonprofit that I'm getting ready to start up. And then also, I follow a few Christian sites, a few Bible sites, and a couple of them are geared clearly towards women. One of them is actually for single Christian women, not a dating site or anything. It's meant to encourage single women of all walks of life, um, helping them stay strong through being single and that sort of thing. Well, I get a message request. Like, oh my goodness, I get so many message requests from bots and scammers in the course of a week through Instagram. It's the only reason why I stay on is because there's people I follow on Instagram that I don't follow on other social sites. If these people I followed were on other social sites, I wouldn't even have an Instagram. Well, anyway, so I look at the message. The message is from some dude, random dude that I don't even know, talking like he knows me, saying he liked my picture, thought it was pretty, whatever. He's blind. And saying that he got my name from these two sites that are geared towards women that he follows. And I knew he followed them because it showed whenever somebody requests a message request or a friend request on Instagram, it tells you if you two follow anything similar. If you both follow a site or whatever. I'm like, um, no, creeper. So not only did I delete the message request, I blocked the guy. Well, I told my coworker about that, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm definitely creeper." And she said that guys like that prey on women that, as she put it, not as strong as I am, which wasn't strong. It's just that because of my age, I have a little bit more wisdom. And she's she had a point because guys like that are going to creep on and prey on women that are naive or so lonely that they'll settle just to have some attention. And To be honest, I have been in that position before. Not since I left my ex. In fact, if anything, I've been pushing guys away after my ex because it scares the bejeebers out of me to have any kind of relationship. But before my ex, y'all know my story, how even before my ex with my father, I never felt like I had my father's approval for anything or my father's pride. To my recollection, he never really said that he was proud of me for anything. And so I projected that in other ways of wanting to please men. And I compromised a lot of my self-worth. I compromised a lot of um my beliefs just to get an attention of a man. Believing some of the craziest things. Y'all, I even dated a guy that I knew was a criminal. Um, and when I was dating this guy, I'm proof that God protects the stupid. Because this guy, I knew he was a criminal. I knew he was a product of the streets. And yet, because he was a smooth talker, I dated him. And he had even dated my best friend at the time. He had dated my best friend at the time and then decided he wanted me, which made me feel so good because my best friend at the time, all the guys always wanted her. And I was just kind of invisible because she had the looks that other men wanted. And so for a guy that wanted me over her after having her, y'all, that felt tremendous. So I dated a guy that dated my friend. And that is something I swore I would never do. And thankfully, she and I loved each other enough, we were close enough friends where we were able to get past that without a problem. And moved on from that. But I compromised my beliefs and my morals because of a guy. Because I wanted to believe his sweet talk and his smooth words. Y'all, this guy could literally talk the fuzz off a peach. He was just that much of a smooth talker. And I wanted to believe it. So I allowed myself to believe it. And had a creeper like that I had dealings with on Instagram, had I encouraged someone like him back before my ex, probably would have fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Like, oh, he's the one, and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm also convinced that that's why a lot of women, especially abuse survivors, go back to their abuser because they're so lonely because they don't know how to be alone that they'd rather go back to their abuser than be alone. And I can understand where they came from because I was like that. I had guys that totally disrespected me, treated me like crap, and I stayed with them just because I didn't want to be lonely. And what she said what my coworker had said, brought back my feelings now, because I'm dealing with loneliness. Because, y'all, I was married for 32 years. For 32 years, though, for, I'd say 28, 29 of those 32 years, he wasn't really a partner. He was something else. Um, I still had somebody. And on occasion, he was pretty supportive. Um, I mean, I fell for him because when we had started talking, we hadn't even gone out on a date yet. We were just talking, and somebody broke into my house and raped me. And he was the one who helped me get through that. Because I didn't want to tell him at first because I was ashamed. And I had always heard a lot of guys don't know how to handle when the girl has been with someone else like that. And so when I told him, and he got all defensive and wanted to get a group of guys together, a group of mutual friends that we had, and go hunt this rapist down. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's wonderful, and that's when my heart started falling. And yeah, he was very supportive of me back then, and I'm convinced that he'd remain supportive of me for our entire marriage had he been able to get 100% of my attention. But because there were other things, I mean, life in general, that, um, had my attention, that's when things started going downhill. But that's another story in and of itself. Um, but so for 32 years, I at least had someone around. Even though the last few years were horrible and I felt lonely even being married. Trust me, it's way better to feel lonely being alone than it is feeling lonely when you've got someone. When you wake up and you have someone lying next to you in bed and you still feel as lonely as that. That's torture. I much rather be at least feeling lonely now. There's a legitimate reason. And so I'm glad that um that I'm working through that. And I'm glad he creeped on me so I was able to recognize it immediately instead of, someone else, but who else is he going to creep on? Sorry about that, guys. I noticed that my backlighting on my computer was going dim, and I'm like, what the heck? My charger wasn't plugged in. So sorry about that. But, and so that's why I'm convinced that a lot of abuse survivors go back to their abuser because they don't want to be alone. But you're far better off alone than to go back with your abuser. Don't get me wrong, it's hard because there have been nights that I've gone through like a flashback or something, or have had a horrible nightmare starring my ex, and wishing that there was someone to just hold me, wrap their arms around me, hold me, and make me feel safe. But and that made me cry even more, because it's like, you want that security, you want that comfort, especially me, um, who's not used to being alone, and I'm learning to be alone. I've only been alone a year and a half, as opposed to being married 32 years. And so it's definitely been a journey. And, I'm here to talk about that. There'll be guys out there, not just on social media, although social media is the easiest way to prey on women, especially. Um, there's men out there that will tell you anything you want to hear just to make you fall for them. And then once you fall for them, then you see the true colors. But by then your heart's already invested in them, and you don't want to back out. You're like, no, I'm in this. I'm good, and that's definitely not a good thing. Um, that's actually been a fear of mine. I talked about it a couple of times with my therapist about that, because I know how I was before my ex, where any sweet talking dude that was halfway decent looking could feed me a bag of goods, and I would fall for it hook, line, and sinker, because I wanted a man. I didn't want to be lonely. And that's something that's kind of like a fear for me now that I'm single, and that there'll be this guy that comes up to me and sweeps me off my feet, and turns out he's just as bad as my ex. And I do have some things that kind of a comfort to me. My therapist and a really good friend of mine at my chiropractor's office, she's the accountant, the bookkeeper, and she and I have clicked. We're really good friends now. Um, or I consider a good friend for sure. Um, they both came up with a good point about the same situation. In fact, I mentioned this on one of my videos early on. This happened. Um, I belong to a patriot organization um, that is wonderful, and this guy had friend requested me on Facebook, and I noticed, I didn't remember him at first, but then I saw that he was on the same patriotic site. So I'm like, oh, okay. I figured he was just one of those that, like-minded type thing. And so I accepted, and we started talking. And if he asked if he lives out of town, and so he said that, in fact, we had gone to a couple of missions at the same time. We had attended the missions at the same time, a couple of them. And he said, next time I'm in town, you want to go grab a bite to eat? And I'm like, okay. I was hesitant, but I figured, well, I know this guy, so It's not like he's a total stranger. So I said, okay. So that whole week we were talking back and forth, likes, dislikes, that sort of thing. And he asked what I liked, and I told him. And in a nutshell, he propositioned me. He telling me what he liked, and yeah, I'll let you use your imagination there. And I'm thinking at first because he was kind of stealthy in the way he asked or the way he propositioned me. So I'm thinking, no, he did not go there. So I ignored that question and went on with the other things he was talking about. And then he answers back and says, "That's great, but what about the other thing?" The stealthy question. And I'm like, he did go there. As he put it, adult time. I'm like, wait a minute. We've attended a couple of missions at the same time. Weren't even going together. We just happened to both be at these missions together. We had a few conversations within those times. And then the dude wants to proposition me. And so I immediately gave him a soliloquy of his lack of respect for me and what I demand as far as respect. And I promptly unfriended him and blocked him. Zero tolerance. And the friend and my therapist, both not even knowing each other, brought up the good point that look at how I had zero tolerance for it. I was right to do what I did and not even give him another chance, because all he would do was put on a mask. And then when he got in there, bam, the mask would come off. So I was right in doing what I did, but I had zero tolerance. I didn't fall for his lines. I didn't want to overlook his proposition just to have the attention of a guy. And so that kind of comforted me, because I kid y'all not, I gave him a long speech about how his lack of respect for me and how I was not going to tolerate it. And I immediately unfriended and blocked. I did not give him a second chance, did not give him a chance to explain himself, nothing. And so from the time before my ex, well, actually, since the time everything went down and my ex was removed, until that point, I've grown, because part of why I stayed with my ex so long, it wasn't that I was afraid to be alone. I kind of relished the thought of being alone, but I wanted the approval of a man, and I didn't realize that. I can look back now and see that I was looking for the approval of a man. But I didn't realize that then. And so I've grown even in just that short a time. but it takes work. You don't just get like that overnight. You know, I say focus on, obviously, first and foremost, God. Work on your relationship with God first and foremost. And if God wants you to have someone, He'll put that person in your path. Because, as I've often said, nothing happens without God knowing and without God having a hand in it, either allowing it or influencing it, one way or the other. Just like, yeah, obviously you take care of yourself and you do what you can to keep your health up and take care of yourself, but ultimately, if God wants you no longer on this earth, you could be the healthiest person on earth and you drop dead. You know, on the same token, look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the Bible. They were in a furnace that was normally extremely hot, and the fire was stoked to be 7 times hotter than it normally is, to the point where all they did was open the door, and the guy that opened the door got burnt to ashes immediately just opening the door. And yet Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego they were thrown into that fire, into that furnace, and they didn't even have the smell of smoke on them. Not one hair was singed. Not one thread on their cloaks was burnt. And so nothing happens without God knowing it or having control of it. And so God wants you to have someone, He'll put that person in your life. I go through my times of loneliness and wish that I had someone, a partner to be there for me, to help me through all of this. But I'm not actively looking. If there is someone out there for me, God will show me, and God will put him in my path, whether it's through church or through my ministry or, my foundation or whatever. God will put him in my path. But I'm not looking. Because, for one thing, I'm a terrible judge when it comes to guys. My ex is proof of that, and the guys I dated before my ex, oh my word. You'd probably laugh and your eyes would probably fall out of your head. If, maybe one day a video I'll describe all the guys I dated. Trust me, there was only one that was pretty decent, and it was a guy that wasn't wanting a relationship. Well, he wasn't ready to settle down, and I was. He was a couple of years younger, and he wasn't ready to settle down. I was. But he was the only guy, the guy I'm thinking about, that actually treated me halfway decent. And oh, my brain is in a fog today, y'all, so I'm sorry. But so I'm not a good judge of guys, but God is. And I'm letting God decide. If he wants me to have someone else and to be married again. Oh, I'm 57. And I'm kind of, I kind of got mixed feelings because part of me wants to have someone around for however many years that I have on this earth. But then part of me is like, I like being single. You know, there's definitely advantages to being single. I can come and go as I please without having someone else to consider. Um, like this afternoon, I dropped my youngest off at work and I didn't feel like going straight home. So I went for a nice little drive around the city, got myself a Scooter's coffee. Scooter's is our local coffee shop. And just went driving around, to a park that I always go to and other areas of the city. And I could do that because I felt like it. I didn't feel like going home. Whereas if I had a husband, I'd have probably had to come straight home. Admittedly, if I had a husband, I'd probably want to come home. So there's that. But, like in July, I was able to pack up and go to Colorado with my daughter for a funeral for her best friend's grandparents and stepbrother's funeral. And I was able to do that, you know, and so there's definitely advantages to being single. And then I could also, my foundation, pour my heart and soul in that and not have to worry about anything sidetracking me. So there are definitely advantages to being single, and I like being single. Like I said, I hadn't been single for 32 years before my ex was removed. So I'm learning to be single because I got married straight out of my parents' home. I was living with my parents until the day I got married. So I don't know what it's like to live on my own. Be on my own, completely alone. And I'm learning, and I kind of like it. It has its moments. But what I'm saying is that, and I'm repeating myself, is, if a guy tells you something that's too good to be true, chances are it is. I mean, really weigh it out and think about what he's saying and don't just immediately fall for it. Because if it's true, it'll stand the test of time. Because there are a lot of predators out there. More so nowadays than there ever been because of social media. Like I said, on Instagram alone, I get more message requests that I don't even think of answering. I'll look at what they have to say and it's like, really? And delete it immediately. Because some of the things they say, oh my goodness, they're like they got it straight out of a Hallmark movie. And thought, oh, that'll be good. And, don't fall for these guys just because you're lonely. And please, don't go back to your abuser just because you're lonely or you feel like your abuser's misunderstood. your abuser is not misunderstood. You know what your abuser is. Deep down, you know. And so don't go back to him just because you want to give him another chance or because you're lonely and you don't know how to be alone. Use this time to do things that you've always wanted to do that you've not ever had a chance to do. Like this foundation. I'm working on this foundation. I've been having this on my heart for 10, 12 years roughly, give or take. And I'm able to do it now because I have nothing preventing me. Start a hobby that you've always wanted to try, or volunteer. Um, Volunteer at your local battered women's shelter or your local homeless shelter. You know, fill your time up, because when your time is filled, when you're doing for others, that is so fulfilling. And you're actually getting the blessing yourself. When I'm able to help others, that is a bigger blessing to me. I'm getting the bigger blessing, I feel. Others say, oh, it's such a blessing that you did this and this. And that's wonderful. And yes, I've blessed them. But y'all, in my opinion, I'm the one that's getting blessed. Because to see their face when I've been able to do something for them, or something like that, that means everything. So fill your time. Go back to school, even. If you've never gotten your high school diploma, get your GED. And if you've gotten your high school diploma, go to college. To be honest, I'm seriously considering it. My daughter encouraged me the other day, asked me if I thought about going to college for humanities. And I've been toying with the idea, and I think I'm going to check it out. Why not? If nothing else, even if I don't use that, I love learning. So do that. And more importantly, focus on your relationship with God. Y'all, I have been closer to God this past year and a half than I have ever been with Him. I've been talking with Him more. I don't read as much as I should, and I need to work on that. But I've been talking to Him. I've been talking to Him more than I ever have. Ever. And I feel like I have a relationship with Him. And that's what's amazing. And that's what's come out of me being alone, me being single. So I'm going to stop this video here. It's been just about 40 minutes. Y'all have a wonderful week. Y'all have a blessed and safe Thanksgiving. Hopefully it's filled with a lot of good memories. Even if you just have one or two people at your house, enjoy those memories. Because it's the simple things. Because I've lost a lot of people over the last 2 years. A lot of people that I regret keeping them at arm's length. It was a big part due to my ex that I did, but now I regret it. So enjoy the little moments and have a good and safe holiday. See you soon and be blessed.